Welcome back to the Final Takeaway audio podcast. We hope you're having a fantastic Saturday so far. Most importantly, thank you for joining us. Let's get right to it. The extradition case against Azruddin Mohamed and his father, Nazar Mohamed, continued yesterday at the Georgetown Magistrates Court. At the last appearance on Monday, November 24, 2025, the prosecution had failed to submit all the required extradition documents. Fast forward to yesterday, November 28, 2025. We learned that the disclosure process is now complete following the prosecution's submission of all documents required to support the extradition request by the United States. The Jamaican lawyer who is leading the prosecution team gave the media this update outside of the Georgetown Magistrates Court yesterday, where his and the defense team met for a continuation of the extradition hearing. To expand a bit more on what disclosure is the act of revealing information to the opposing side, which in this case is the Mohameds. It's a mandatory legal requirement for the prosecution to provide all relevant evidence to the defense lawyers for them to prepare their case. It is also a key part of due process. The Mohameds' lawyers, who make up the defense team, can now fully review all the documents to help it make its case for the Mohameds. But the state of Guyana has another huge hurdle to jump over. Wait until you hear the plans the Mohameds' attorneys have to turn this case on its head. Before we get to that, let's hear from lead prosecutor Terrence who tells us that court was adjourned to give the defense team more time to prepare their arguments.
And they have asked today for an adjournment to get more time to prepare their submissions. It is a due process issue, and if they need more time, we are not going to oppose that. We understand that there are times when counsel will need more time to prepare, and in that regard, we didn't oppose them getting more time. But we just asked that the court set dates for written submissions so the oral submissions can go much quicker.
Despite the wait, the Guyana government-paid prosecution team is feeling confident they have a strong case against the Mohameds based on the evidence provided by the U.S. In fact, Williams says his team came ready to begin presenting the evidence, which he hopes will prove sufficient grounds for extradition.
I don't want to speak in detail about the evidence in the American request because that's matters before the court. I don't want to speak about the content of it and the persons involved. We are making ourselves ready to call evidence and start if needs be. So we had persons present. Should the matter start, they would give their evidence. Yes, we have the matters, the evidence in the request put before the court.
Hopping over to the defense team, attorney for the Mohameds, senior counsel Roysdale Forde, confirms all the requisite documents are in, noting they include what the prosecution terms as quote-unquote evidence proving the Mohameds committed the crimes as charged in the U.S. indictment filed last month in the District Court of Southern Florida. But the defense team has other plans before they begin to zoom in on the extradition case. They plan to raise an objection to the extradition request on constitutional grounds. What I mean by that is, they plan to rely on facts and circumstances to convince the court the prosecution does not have a case for extradition.
We would have received a number of statements, both formal statements and evidence from which the prosecution is indicating that they have evidence indicating that the alleged offences occurred and were committed by our clients. Today, they have finally indicated to us that they've completed the disclosure process. We requested as a consequence of that an opportunity, has always been our position, after the close of disclosure, to have an opportunity to review all the documents as a whole, for the advice of our client, and then we proceed to the constitutional issue. The court granted us really about 1 week, so within that week we'll be able to complete our submissions.
From the very outset of this case, when the men were arrested on October 31, 2025, their lawyers have always maintained that it would be unlawful and a violation of the Constitution to extradite the men to the U.S. And remember, this is an extradition request for individuals who are Guyanese citizens who reside in Guyana. The issue of constitutional breach may not arise, for example, if the individual or individuals in Guyana were U.S. citizens, for example. Therefore, as it relates to the Mohammeds, the constitutional issues have to be sorted out first in court to determine if the government can move ahead with the extradition hearing. We understand that the Mohammeds' lawyers intend to send written documents to the court between now and the next court date to prove why the Mohammeds cannot and should not be handed over to the United States to face charges there. On that note, Senior Magistrate Judy Latchman has set the next court hearing for December 10, 2025. She's expected to rule on constitutional issues which the Mohammeds' lawyers plan to raise in court. Azruddin Mohamed was indicted after his party won 16 seats in the National Assembly, making it the opposition party, on November 3, 2025. He was sworn in as a member of parliament. While he remains the leader of the party, he's yet to be officially appointed as the leader of the opposition by President Irfan Ali. Mohamed, alongside his party's members of parliament and supporters, held a protest yesterday in front of the parliament building, calling for the Speaker of the National Assembly, Mansour Nadir, to call the meeting that is necessary for the MPs to elect Mohamed as the leader of the opposition. That process has to happen before Irfan Ali could officially appoint Azruddin as the leader of the opposition.
We cannot allow the Speaker to delay the process of calling the meeting to elect the leader of the opposition. He's on vacation, I think. I don't know where he went, but I heard the president said he's out of the country. But we have a deputy speaker. How long are we going to keep the country in a limbo from electing the leader of the opposition? Why are they so scared of me? Because why? They know that I hold them accountable every second of the day. They are scared. That is why they don't want me to be the substantive leader of the opposition, because they are scared of me, because they know that I unite all races. They know I have support from all races in this country. So this is the problem, and they know that I will continue to hold them accountable every minute of it.
Without the opposition party being formally and officially installed, what that means in effect is Guyana, which claims to be a democratic state, has a ruling party in government, but no opposition in place to perform the required checks and balances. More significantly, what this type of scenario often leads to is total political power and control by the ruling party.